Hello, staff and students, and welcome to this year's Remembrance Day ceremony. Although we are all unable to meet in the gym this year, it is still very important that we take this time to remember those that made the ultimate sacrifice in order to protect this great country we call Canada. So why do we celebrate Remembrance Day? Remembrance Day is a memorial day observed by Canadians and others around the world since the end of the First World War to acknowledge the courage and sacrifice of those who served and are currently serving our country, and acknowledge our responsibility to work for the peace they fought so hard to achieve. In the next video, the grade 9 students and I had the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Andrew Gorman, a veteran with the Canadian Armed Forces. Mr. Gorman provided us with lots of information about what it was like to work for the Armed Forces and what he experienced on his missions overseas. The third video is the reciting of the poem In Flanders Fields by students of Entwistle School. The poem was made by Canadian soldier John McCrae, and it symbolizes the sacrifices of all who were fighting in the First World War. Today, John McCrae's poem continues to be a part of Remembrance Day ceremonies in Canada and other countries. Next, we will recognize and honor family members of our students who served in the war. We will finish our ceremony with the sound of trumpets and a moment of silence at 11 a.m. Why do we have a moment of silence at 11 a.m.? In 1918, after 4 years of bitter fighting, the Great War was finally over. A peace agreement was signed at 5 a.m. in a railway carriage in France on November the 11th, 1918. 6 hours later, at 11 a.m., the war was finally over. So on the 11th hour, on the 11th day, on the 11th month, we have a moment of silence to pay tribute to those that fought for their country. We hope that you enjoy today's presentation. Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule today to meet with us and share your story and your experiences working with the Canadian Armed Forces. So at this time, I would like to introduce you to some of our grade 9 students who will be assisting me today with this interview.
So hello, I'm Levi.
I'm Riley. I'm Hannah.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you as well.
Okay, so let's just begin. So Andrew, what was your job or your specialty with the Canadian Armed Forces?
So I joined the infantry, and in the infantry in Canada, there are 3 battalions. You've got RCR, which is on the East Coast and in Ontario. There's the Vandus, which are in Quebec, and then there's PPCLI, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, which is in Manitoba and Alberta. So I ended up joining one PPCLI in Edmonton.
Okay, awesome. And what was your specialty? Like, what were you trained to do?
In the Canadian Armed Forces, you train a lot of different specialties. So some of the courses I had were anti-tank, communications. Some of the vehicles that we had, I was qualified to drive those, many different weapon systems. So we train everybody on a lot of different things, so that if something ever happens, you can easily just adapt in the mission itself. So
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so what did training look like for you? What was the process of trying to get into it?
So the first, once you get accepted to the Canadian Armed Forces, one of the first things you will do is your basic training. Basic training is typically 10 weeks. It can be up to 12 weeks, depending on which location you do it in Canada. So for me, I did it in Ormocto, New Brunswick, and it was a 12-week program. Once we graduated that, you would go on to kind of your whatever trade you were going to do. So I went to infantry school in Wainwright, Alberta, and that goes typically about 17 weeks. And that's where you learn all of the different weapon systems, kind of the process behind how you do attacks or defensive positions. Once you graduate that, you'll get posted to your unit, which was for me 1 PPCLI in Edmonton. So.
Okay, Riley?
Were you ever like delooped or so? If so, where and when?
Overseas, I did 2 tours. I did Afghanistan in 2004 in Kabul, and my second tour to Afghanistan was 2006 in Kandahar.
Okay. How long did you go for?
Our tours typically last about 6 months, but they vary slightly just depending on when your flight in and flight out were. So my last tour ended up being about 7 months just based on flights in and out.
Wow, can you imagine 7 months
Yeah.
away from the comforts of home? How was that, Andrew? How did you cope?
I guess it might be a little bit shocking to hear. Early on, you're so focused on the mission and the environment that you're in that you really kind of forget what it's like to live in Canada. A lot of the niceties and stuff like that, you just don't. You're not used to it while you're deployed. So you make the best of it. Obviously, you're over there with some really good comrades and stuff like that. So I mean, it's always a laugh on your downtime. Everybody's always joking and having a good time, but when push comes to shove and the missions have to get done, then everybody's very professional, and it's just a great group of people to be around.
That's great.
So while you were on your tour, what was your daily routine like?
So if we were on like the Kandahar airfield, you would always get up in the morning and you would do like physical fitness training, go for a run, go to the gym, do something along those lines. Continuously doing like equipment and vehicle maintenance just to make sure that if you ever do get called out on mission, that everything is ready to go. And if you do have a bit of downtime in between kind of prepping all the time, we play sports and stuff like that just to pass the time, watch movies, that kind of thing.
Okay, was that one our next question? What does he do?
No.
No? Okay, we're not quite there yet. Okay. All right.
What was some of the stuff you guys ate?
Um, when we were on like a major base, so like the Kandahar airfield or even in Edmonton or what have you, we would have like meal halls that would have pretty set schedules, good food like steak, lobster, hamburgers, salads, lasagna, kind of all over the place. When we were in the field, we would eat rations. So each ration pack was contained. It depended. Like you had breakfast, lunch, and dinner ones, and they would contain like a main meal, some bread, some condiments, maybe some snacks. The lunch ones you would get a full size chocolate bar, and they would add up to about 3,600 calories a day, just to make sure that you had enough calories to keep you going. And from time to time, we would trade with other countries just to try other people's ration packs to see what they were like, because you do get sick of eating the same thing over and over again.
What country had the best ration packs?
Ours were actually pretty good. Some of the American stuff was really good. It all each country definitely had some negative meals that you tried to avoid. So I think it was just a hit or miss scenario with whatever you could find.
Right, right.
Okay, so what were the weather conditions like?
So when I deployed to Afghanistan on my second tour, we went over in January, and during the day you would be like 30 degrees, hot and sunny, but at night it would drop down to like just below 10 degrees at night.
Wow.
So we were actually like very, very cold at night when we first got there, just with the drastic temperature changes.
Wow.
As our tour progressed, we regularly got over 50, 60 degrees Celsius in the heat and the sun, and wearing all your gear. It was pretty hot. There were some days where you would get like monsoon rains, but it would be like hard downpour and then hot and sunny for like a week. So
Wow. I can't imagine wearing all that equipment in that heat.
I used to play hockey growing up, and what took me years to get my hockey equipment to smell like was a matter of days in the military for all of my military gear in that kind of weather.
Right. Yeah. And so how did you clean your like military gear?
We whenever you got back onto the main bases, we would have like laundry services and stuff like
Okay.
that. So we would carry like four sets of combat, so you kind of figure out how long you're going for and ration them out accordingly. And
Wow. Wow. That's insane. Okay.
So, like, what were your living conditions, like your quarters and sleeping and stuff like that?
so in at the Kandahar airfield, we lived in this gigantic tent, and there was just rows and rows of bunk beds.
Oh
And
my
each
gosh.
bunk bed was filled. So you had, I was lucky I was on the bottom bunk, but I had a person that lived above me, and you had like a floor space that was kind of taped out, and you could kind of make it your own. And, we bought like rugs and stuff like that just to try to make it feel more at home and what have you. When we were actually out in the field doing missions and stuff like that, we literally slept wherever we could in the vehicles. At night, a lot of the times you'd sleep on the ground next to your vehicle with all your equipment there, so that if something were to happen, you just wake up, grab your stuff, and go. So yeah, it really varied.
Wow. I did not know that. We're imagining you like, being in this enclosed space and, yeah,
You
did not know that.
we endured a few windstorms and stuff like that, laying on the ground next to some of our armored vehicles, and you wake up startled a few times where you'd have some creepy crawly crawling up you. You just grab it and fling it as far as you could get it off you. But for the most part, you were so tired you could sleep
Right,
anywhere.
right.
Well, we kind of already went over this question, but what did you do in like your downtime?
Um, a lot of working out, either gym or running around the airfield or sports. We did have computers and stuff like that where we could, go on Messenger and message family back home. Limited phones and stuff like that, so we could try to phone every once in a while. Um, a lot of people had movies and books and stuff like that, and little personal things like the little PlayStation, the PSPs. We used to have those and play them amongst each other. So you just find whatever you can do to pass the time.
Right. Andrew, is there anything else you'd like to share with us that maybe we haven't already covered?
Um, I'm not sure. I think you guys covered most of it. Yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed my time in the Canadian Armed Forces. It was a great experience. Definitely molded me into who I am today. Highly recommend anybody that is interested in it to check it out. Um, and definitely, um, they offer a lot of trades, so you can get education and come out of the military with actual trade certificates and stuff like that. So there's a lot of really good options. Or if you're extremely adventurous, be like me and join the infantry.
Well, Andrew, on behalf of the staff and students here at Entwistle School, I'd like to thank you for your time today and sharing your experience with us. It is because of individuals like yourself that make Canada one of the safest and securest countries in the world. So, thank you for your courageous sacrifice and your service for our country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today, Andrew.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much, guys.
vandals feel.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the